Hi, everyone. It's Dr. Z, and welcome to another episode of Next Up Narcissism. Today, we have a very special guest. We have director Jack Stockley. He is the director of a film called Purgatory, which is a short film, award-winning film, that is probably one of the best portrayals I have ever seen of coercive control within a narcissistic abusive relationship. I will say, trigger warning for this episode, spoiler alert for the film for this episode as well. But he takes us through kind of scene by scene of why and how he chose what he did to portray coercive control in this film. And like I said, it is one of the best portrayals of the subtleties and the nuances that is coercive control. I hope you enjoy this. And again, trigger warning, spoiler alert, but this is a very good and much needed episode. And welcome to another episode of Next Up Narcissism. Today, I am absolutely honored to have Jack Stockley. Let me just give you kind of a quick overview of who this amazing person is. But Jack Stockley is an award-winning film director. And I, one night in my spiral of insomnia, was searching for movies on Reddit, which is what I normally do at 3 a.m., and found this amazing short film called Purgatory that, and we'll get into the details of it, but it's a short film that raises awareness of domestic violence, particularly coercive control. And I can honestly tell you that this is one of the most amazing films I have ever seen that does again, when we spoke, I was speechless about this, about how well you take coercive control, something that people have such a hard time verbally expressing and describing, and somehow manage to put it in a film that, without really many words, gives so much detail about what coercive control and coercive control in an abusive relationship looks like. Your film has won awards. It has been shown in numerous countries. And I was lucky enough to find it in my insomnia spiral. But I'm going to hand it over to you, Jack. And I, for people listening, just kind of give an overview briefly of how this came to be. And then I want to get into the nuts and bolts of how amazing this was.
Well, that's quite an intro. Thanks.
Yeah, sure.
That's, no, really, thank you for the compliments. That means a lot. And okay, get to the nuts and bolts of it. How did it come around? It was during COVID, actually. My wife said to me, "Why don't you just get on with this and write yourself a short film?" And then once I started researching at the time during COVID about how bad abusive relationships had got and just how prolific it had become, it spoke to itself that that's what it needed to be. And then there was, I wrote the script, which was only 9 pages. And this is a bit of an overshare, but it's the truth. It was not about trying to write or direct anything. It was about trying to help people in any which way that it possibly could, directly or indirectly. So, and it became a creature of its own after that.
I think and we had talked about this when we initially spoke, how one of the most important things for you was to not show physical violence in this film. And not because it would have been inappropriate, but because you wanted to convey that there is another form of abuse that's insidious, that's just soul crushing in a sense, that doesn't necessarily involve physical abuse. And you did that. So for people listening, how difficult was that? And how did you even know what to include? Because the examples of coercive control that you gave in the film are so nuance based. They're so subtle. And it's, given that this is what I do for a living, it was easy for me to see those, obviously.
They're screaming at you, those little red flags. But if you've
never for somebody else, and so it was. I'm curious how you even knew what those tiny little behaviors were to even use. I say this as a trigger warning for people. People listening to this, everybody should watch this, but I want to give you for those of you listening, a trigger warning. This will leave you triggered, right? This will leave you feeling, I mean, I can tell you after I watched it, that feeling of just, holy shit. It was kind of that final line of, today is going to be a good day. And that feeling in your gut of just, that existential dread. I've talked to you about that, just that feeling of just, oh God, like it was such a brutal and raw feeling. And you just felt you felt almost like her hopelessness. You felt her helplessness, and you felt that denial that was slowly being chipped away, that you really can't, like, how much longer is she going to be able to deny this for? Trigger warning for those of you listening, but if we could kind of start with the beginning and kind of go through of those key scenes, because at least in the beginning, the very first scene, you're kind of unaware of what's going on, because it looks like, the husband is just being a nice husband in a sense, and getting her up and opening the curtains and starting the day. And she's looking in the mirror and she's doing these positive affirmations, like today's going to be a good day. And then it slowly chips away at that, and you realize what's happening, and it just gets progressively worse, but without saying it's getting worse, which is just absolutely amazing how you did it. So I'm going to stop talking, and I want you to just kind of go through from the beginning and take us through and kind of give a summary of this.
So it's exactly, it's the subtext that I mentioned before.
Mm-hmm.
You watch that opening scene, the very, very first act that you see on screen is he's being a nice guy. He's starting the day. Mm-hmm. But it's the subtext when by the end of the film, and you realize it all, and you're in the character's shoes, straight away, he is commanding the film. He says the first line. His first lines are insulting, calling her lazy bum, but it's playful. She seems groggy. Is she hungover? Is she sick? Is it something? He's a bit well dressed, so he's a bit more together. And so you kind of start the film off questioning what's her problem.
Mm-hmm.
And straight away from the outside, so many relationships that are abusive that way seem that way from the outside. You think, well, she's a bit lazy. She's a, or he, the other way around. It's not that the girls are always the victims, but the abuser tends to have that portrayal of, I've got it all together and I'm looking after them. And it's that facade that we try to instantly start off. He holds back as well. Should we do spoilers? If you haven't seen the film, go watch the film, because we're going to have spoilers.
Yes, spoiler alert. Yes, spoiler alert.
When he sits down with a cup of tea, it's the tiny little details of, like, Scott will hold the tea back when he asks her the question, oh, how did you sleep last night? Did you sleep all the way through? She says, oh, I don't really remember. He gets the green light because he abused her last night. So then the tea moves forward, and he says, oh, well, hopefully you'll feel better today. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And everything is in his control from the moment the camera starts rolling. Then he says, get up. He chooses her clothes. He gets her dressed. And if you watch that first scene back, knowing everything about the film, you watch that and you just go, oh shit, that's a totally different situation. But if you watched it and we didn't tell you it was about domestic abuse, we just showed you that scene and said, what do you see? You wouldn't see anything. So it
You'd
is
say
about...
you're overreacting. You'd say he's being so nice. He's being so kind.
it's 8:20 and he's up and dressed and ready for work and brought you a cup of tea.
He's helping you.
But yeah, that was the opening scene. The second scene is the bathroom. So when she first goes into the bathroom, and I'm going to read my little notes that I made here. But from what I remember, this was all about claustrophobia.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have the world of control from Adam from the first scene. She's now on her own. She can't shut the door properly. The door's ever so slightly open. But she's in this tiny, tiny little bathroom, trapped. And the only space she has to herself is completely hemmed in. And she's at her most vulnerable. We even see her take a wee.
Yep.
And the idea there, obviously, is to trap her and make you see that she's claustrophobic.
And she's in pain, which we'll get to, but she's in pain when she goes to the bathroom and alone with her pain. And it's at this point, you don't know anything. And maybe she's a UTI, something's wrong. We don't quite know, but it was something about the closed in space and the lack of privacy. And
yeah, but she's trying to build her strength. So she's on her own and she gives herself that kind of self-affirmation of today's going to be a good day, like you're saying. Right. But the next shot is the water dripping in the kitchen because Adam has picked up the washing up and we see him for just a split second before Lilith enters. So we see him now and instantly his huff. And as she enters the shot, even though she's tried, she's entering a world here where he doesn't seem, something's a little off. That's your first kind of obvious little flare, if you will. Mm-hmm. But now he's fully dressed, tie is done, all astute, everything's perfect. It again reiterates the point of she's lazy because she's still in her pajamas.
Yeah.
She's just come straight out of the bathroom. He's all together. He's washing up. It's all about that power play. And it's a funny one as well because the behavior of when he goes to move, because she instantly picks up on his demeanor and says, no, I'll do it. You go.
And the doctor comment was she's very concerned. She's going to the bathroom. It's burning. It's hurting. She's bleeding. She doesn't know what's going on. And he gaslights her, right? In the kitchen in the morning, she's expressing her concern. She's expressing, that she feels like something's wrong. She's going with her gut on this. And he basically says to her, in a nutshell, well, if you call, you're going to look like an asshole because, you're going to look stupid. There's nothing wrong with you. Stop overreacting. And at the time, we think he's just, kind of, unfortunately what women have dealt with for years with doctors is medical gaslighting where, it's in your head, you're fine, relax, it's fine. And we kind of look at it like that, but it's so much more sinister. And at the time, right, you still don't know that yet. But it's starting to build. You kind of get the sense now from everything up until that point that it's a little bit more than him just saying you're overreacting.
I've had a lot of survivors reach out to me and say that happened to me, and people don't ever talk about it, and it's never really reported. No one looks at it the same way. We were married, and
Listen, I've had so many patients, women who didn't realize that, I'm going to give it away now, but didn't realize that your husband could rape you, right? Yeah. And rape doesn't need to look like holding you down and forcing you. It could be, coercing you into it. Like, if you don't have sex with me, I'm going to take your children from you. If you don't have sex with me, I'm going to keep you up all night screaming in your face till 4:00 in the morning and not let you sleep. I mean, there's different aspects to that, all of which fall under that coercive control, sexual coercion, that people don't talk about. And in this situation, which I'll let you get to what it was, it's even more sinister than that, what he did. And it's so awful. Like, it's just so bad. And again, this is why trigger warning for people that are going to watch this, but I'll let you. So he leaves for work.
He leans in. He commands a conversation by saying, "Don't go and see the doctor. You'll be looked at like an idiot. It'll be fine. It will heal on its own." Kiss. He commands her to kiss her and then says, don't forget food delivery.
I was so nervous. I'm like, please don't forget the food delivery. Like, I felt that for her.
And you get anxious of like, well, I bet no fucking way am I going to miss this food delivery.
Yeah. And that's the eggshells, right? Like, you're walking, oh God, I can't forget the food. I can't forget the food, you know.
And she's trapped indoors for the entire day.
Yep.
It doesn't give her a time. If she waited a couple of minutes, she could walk out. She sat at the door. She could leave.
Yeah.
And a lot of people always say that. Well, why just leave? If he's an asshole, as you like to say, as the Americans say, if he's an asshole, just leave. But it's not that easy, right?
That's right. And we know that when a woman leaves a narcissistic, abusive, coercive, controlling relationship like that, the time that she's most at risk for harm to herself and to her children is when she leaves, or if they find out that she's going to leave, or right after that, after she leaves. That's the highest time for violence. And so it isn't a matter of just leaving; it's leaving safely. And and again, you'll get into this, but he's done a really good job of isolating her from her friends and family, where she can go. She has no access to money.
The next scene is my cameo. Actually, I am in the film. Thank you very much. But it's the food delivery, and my original goal for this was to have, not that it was a security camera, but to have the camera in an elevated position, so it sort of feels like you're in a like CCTV is kind of like godlike. It's a little bit kind of like, top down view. I'm up here looking down at you. She opens the door, but she won't open the door fully. You don't see the man who's delivering the food.
It just shows how confined she is. There's no access to the outside world. Yeah.
She's petrified of something just being misinterpreted or going wrong. She feels the need to control everything that's going on in her life to appease his wants.
Yes.
And this is a showcase of that. And then the blame taking. So when the delivery driver says, did you know that the address on the system is still wrong? He's obviously delivered before, so he knows where it should go. Yeah. But he's just telling her, and she says, oh, yes, that's me. I'll sort it.
When I heard that, I wondered too if the husband had done that on purpose.
Brilliant.
Just to have it messed up, so he'd have a reason to be angry with her if the food wasn't there. Yeah,
he did.
Because
it's like you were on set. Fair play to you.
Is that really what it was?
Yeah. Why would he make a mistake? A guy who's so prim and so proper,
perfectionist. Yeah. See, that is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. That's the stuff that people will say. Like, am I going crazy? Did I do it?
That's the gaslighting, right?
That's the gaslighting. Yeah.
If she says, well, the guy says it's the wrong address, Adam's going to say, it's just a row. And he gets to go, it's something else he's got to fix.
Yes.
He can put the blame on her, and he gets the notifications.
Right.
So, which you see in the next scene, when she's back in the kitchen. It's a little bit ahead where we are, but whatever. Yeah, she gets back in the kitchen and her mom calls her to speak to her, and she says, oh, it's not a good time, really, Mom. No one says that out loud. And we discussed this on set, that actually she's not saying that. That's not her voice. That's her. That's his voice.
That's his voice.
Through her. It sounds crazy, but it's true.
Well, that's their whole goal. I mean, a narcissist's entire goal is power and control. Not just over your behaviors, but over your thought process, over your emotions. They want to be the one. If you're going to be happy, they want to be the one that made you that way. You're going to be sad. They want to be. It's not about constantly making you feel like crap. It's about being in control of what mood you're going to have, being in control of your thought process, so that if they're not physically present, you're still under their control. And you see that with a statement like that. That's him speaking through her, which is the whole point.
Yeah, exactly. And from there, it was the text message. He gets the notification, and his message to her, which we spoke about before, but all in capitals, and that was Shaylin. She said, this guy is an all caps
Mm-hmm.
texting kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need, there's no room there for a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
They're not talking throughout the day. That's a statement piece. And then he moves on. I see the delivery turned up. I see. And it's perfect. I see everything.
I see everything.
Everything.
Yep.
And it's, you.
It was so creepy.
Oh, and you read it and you think, well, but without the context that's building, taken out of context, I see the food deliveries turned up.
No big deal.
No, and it's right now.
And that's why if you were to explain this abuse, if she were at this point to explain this to somebody and show the messages, they would say, "Well, he knows the food's there. There's nothing wrong with that."
His next line, he says to her, "Make your famous salmon pasta for tea." Doesn't ask her to make it. Some people would say he's just telling her to, but he's commanding.
He's commanding. Yeah.
Oh,
yep. It leaves no room for her opinions, her interests, her likes, her dislikes. I mean, nothing.
Maybe it's a lot of that actually, you ask about those nuances, and maybe you've caught a nail there on the head, is that it is about the lack of conversation. Yeah, lack of options, lack of her input.
It's not a genuine, I want to make your life easier. I know what you like, and that's part of our relationship, and I'm giving this to you because I'm trying to anticipate your needs before that's not what this is. This is, I'm telling you what you need. I'm not anticipating anything because you don't have needs. And I think that's the difference that you convey so beautifully in this, because that's such a hard thing to do. But you did it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
The next step, actually, because one of the things is that before the sexual assault, he is drugging her. But he drugged her the night before as well.
Mm-hmm. Which you don't know yet.
We're around lunchtime now-ish, if you think about the kind of day as a cycle.
You lose track of time. You have no idea what time it is because she's so isolated in there.
She's just in the house.
Yeah.
But because the drugs have started to wear off or come out of her system a bit, she's now started to elevate her mood. So she puts the shopping away. She's in scruffy clothes, but she's out of her pajamas. She puts them all away. She listens to the voice note from her mom. Trivia note here, that is actually Shaylin's mom who does the voice note. It was the actress's mom who did it. And it kind of picks her up. Then she has that text message and she sees an opportunity here to actually do something nice with Adam. So she goes to the bedroom to get dressed. And this is where Lilith is really having an opportunity to be herself. She picks her colours, which are far more brighter than the rest of the film. And then you get the coming home scene. And he walks in. She says, "I've got a surprise for you." Steps out in what she thinks would be ideally perfectly suited to him. And his initial response is, "Why?"
Oh, I know. Oh, I hated that.
So
it just crushed her. Yeah.
So there's the opposite play to what we were just discussing, right? So when he's commanding and giving her instructions and everything's not about options, not about choices, it's not a conversation. When he's clearly annoyed, he only gives her a question.
Yes.
No structure, a single word.
Yes.
Why? And all it is an invitation to fail. And that just makes everything sink. Because to put it, you're fucked, to put it.
You're fucked. Yeah. And it shows that no matter what she does, it doesn't matter because he's going to deliberately make it irrelevant. Even if he liked what she's wearing, he's going to tell her he doesn't. I mean, there's nothing she can do because that's what, they'll set up these rules. And then as soon as you think you've figured out their rules, they'll just arbitrarily change them from, just because it keeps that person walking on eggshells. And that's exactly what happens. And he knew so for people when they say, do they know what they're doing? Yes, he knew exactly what he was doing.
Yeah.
He was deliberately taking that joy that she had and saying, nope, you're not allowed to have joy unless I tell you can have joy. And so I'm going to suck this out of you right here, right now.
She even says, he says, you weren't dressed like that when the delivery man came, were you?
Oh.
And then the accusation starts, and there's a passive aggressive accusation. So now his cool, calm demeanor is starting to fail, but the passive aggressiveness is starting to come out. So he's becoming rattled. Which she says, she scoffs. She's like, no, absolutely not. Which makes the delivery scene make more sense of why she was afraid of anything. And then she says, it's not like you'd be interested in me anyway. She's trying to just
she's catering to that.
Yeah. And now you really start to see the nature of their relationship.
That's right.
We filmed it. We said it was a film of two halves, and up until the coming home scene is the opening, kind of figuring it out. The minute he comes home from work, the darkness enters the house.
That's right. Which is exactly what happens. They're outside. They're lovely. They're charming. They're philanthropic. They're great. They're helpful. And then they come home, and then the monster shows up. And again, this is why I say, yes, they know what they're doing. Somebody who doesn't know what they're doing isn't going to be this master manipulator and controller of their emotions. People think narcissists have very poor control of their emotions and their anger. And that's not the case. They're actually extremely skilled in controlling their emotions and extremely skilled in controlling their anger. Talk to me a little bit about the dinner scene, because that was again, like you said, it's kind of the beginning of the mask slipping off.
Well, you know
something's building.
There's something in him. Yeah. And you don't know. I mean, if you didn't know that this was a film about domestic abuse, you'd think, is this guy a murderer, or is this guy like a psychopath?
Which is very telling, because if that's where you go with it, which I was just going to say, people probably think something's very off with him. They would never think this. It's like, you'd think he was a murderer or something. It's like, and the fact that that's where your head goes tells you how dark this type of abuse is.
Then, just before Shailene went in, I can't remember exactly what it was that I said to Shailene now, but there was something that I said that just kind of took her out of her good mood. So she was in that kind of like, oh, okay. I put her on the spot with something uncomfortable. I made her uncomfortable with something. I can't remember what it was now. And sat her on set. And I didn't tell her about the food scene. So when Scott stands up and he grabs the food and squeezes it, she had no idea that was coming.
What's interesting with food, just so I don't know if that was on purpose or not, or it was just something that you had access to at the table, but food is a big aspect of control with people, right? We control what we put in our bodies, and we control what we put out, which is why when people feel so out of control, a lot of time eating disorders, right, or substance use, it's things we can consume or choose not to consume. And so with food, one of the things with narcissists is that you'll go through this whole thing where you prepare a meal for them. We see this a lot with husbands and wives where one is a narcissist, and they prepare these meals, and it could be the meal that their spouse loves and that they're trying to appease, but then for no reason whatsoever, just because it's a Tuesday and the wind's blowing to the west, the narcissist will take the plate and throw it against the wall and say, I don't want to eat this. Or they'll know that they're being cooked this amazing meal and then decide they're going to go out for dinner. So food is like one of those tools of the narcissist. The narcissist likes to use a lot because food and money are very much control aspects. So food's part of that.
It was definitely a tool for control. The fact he demanded the meal and she made it, and then the salt. The fact he eats it and he goes, this is nice, and everything's good at the beginning of the meal.
Yes.
And a cute little moment as well, that lemon, when he squeezes the lemon, the pip runs off. They both burst out laughing. When he was eating it, everything was fine. And then she starts to bring up her mother in the conversation. And he's like, and he brings it down and then says, pass the salt, as if now the dinner's not good enough.
No,
so now he has to correct it.
Again, that's the stuff that I'm talking about that you just don't ever see in movies that portray that. I mean, it's those tiny things that are just, again, I'm like mind blown that like you put those things in, because they're so tiny, but they are so symbolic of something so much bigger.
But that, to me, I mean, as a storyteller, as a filmmaker, to me, that kind of stuff is the most important. It's the lifeblood of the film, but there's still something quite shocking about that one act of when he hits the table, because that's the only real act of violence, like an outburst that you see.
Yep.
But I felt it was more powerful to do that, because that feels so much more powerful than to him to stand up and just start.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it highlights the dangerous nature of those subtleties.
The anxiety is absolutely through the roof. And you walk on eggshells as you watch. You feel all tense and anxious, and that is exactly what it would be like to be in that situation.
And that is complex PTSD in a nutshell. That is what that is this chronic, not a single episode where you would develop PTSD, but this ongoing, which you see so often in domestic violence, this ongoing hypervigilance, hyper awareness of your surroundings, your brain constantly thinking it's in danger. You're constantly on fight or flight mode, and our brains and our bodies are equipped to only deal with short acute stressors like that, not long drawn out episodes of chronic fight or flight. And so when people come out of domestic abusive relationships, they'll say they feel foggy. They feel like they have, memory impairment. They feel like they don't know who they are, their identity, and everything's just a blur. And that idea of permanent state of everything is a threat, it takes a number on you physically. I mean, your physical health is absolutely 100% impacted by that.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. It puts you higher risk for heart disease, for cancer, for autoimmune disease. And this is what we see with domestic violence. And so many people come out of that and they're sick. Their immune systems are shot.
That's really interesting, actually. Yeah. So it's quite funny because, I mean, it in the film itself, there's a lot of that theme going on. And I mean, you can even ask yourself whether or not Lilith is agoraphobic or agoraphobic, if you want to pronounce that. And because she is afraid of outside and she's locked into this apartment, even the outside world, our choice of lighting for the windows is to bloom everything out completely.
Yeah.
The film itself covers some religious elements. So it's called Purgatory, the choice of names of Adam and Lilith. And I played with the idea that she's trapped on this downward spiral on her way down to hell, which is Adam's ideal, if you will. But the outside world could be heaven. It is the Garden of Eden, if you will. It's the outside world. It's freedom. It's everything. It represents all of that. And we overexpose all of the light from outside.
Yeah. That was when you pull the window open and you're like blinded by it. And then when you explained it from that, it was like, oh,
and wow. When she's in the kitchen with the shopping, the window behind her is overexposed.
Yep.
So much, because you have that, people always talk about the brilliant light of heaven and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
When the delivery man's there, the door doesn't open, so you don't see a street. You just see some trees on the top window a little bit. And it's this idea of this, she's trapped in purgatory.
Yes.
And
the same day, all day, every day,
and she's
over
on
and
repeat.
over.
It's on a cycle. Yeah.
Yep.
This cycle repeating, and that's the cycle of
and really, the only way she is going to get out is if she leaves or she dies. So one of the most disturbing things about these types of relationships, and it's not said enough, so I'll say it here because why not? But the primary goal, right, the primary aim of a narcissist is to gain power and control over somebody else, so, right, over their thoughts, their feelings, their behaviors, all that. The ultimate form of control over somebody else, like to be able to dictate how somebody thinks and how somebody feels, is what the narcissist craves. Their goal is to strip that person down of every layer of their sense of self and their self-identity until there's nothing left. So from a narcissist viewpoint, the battle is completely won, and they're in total ownership if they break this person down so much that they kill themselves. I mean, that's ultimately what would be that the end of all of that, is to gain so much control and power over this person that they don't exist anymore. I mean, that really is what it comes down to. And so this is why the rate of suicide is so much higher in these types of abusive relationships, because they are completely stripped of their sense of self.
Definitely. And that's when he takes what you don't quite see, pours like some sort of white substance, like a powder, into her glass of wine, tops up the glass of wine, and walks over to her all apologetic and balms the situation with love and apologies and like, I love you, and let's not argue, all that kind of old nonsense, when really he's just standing there just trying to drug her with, with the pills that you see throughout the film, I think it's 4 sleeping tablets that he's put into it. I think, don't quote me on that. And knowing that, and then forcing and saying, come on now, drink it all up, and you'll be fine.
And then as far as why he's doing this, can you kind of go into why you chose this as an aspect of it? Because again, it's something that's not talked about.
Yeah. And I think that's it. I think that is exactly it. So they're quite freshly engaged, maybe it's been less than a year. But people don't talk about the fact that rape can exist in a marriage. It can exist in in any relationship. It's not something that happens between strangers in the park. It's not a cliche. But people don't talk about it. People don't think that it's a real thing. People think that if you're married, your husband can't rape you. It wasn't even illegal. I think it was in the 60s or the 70s, maybe even later than that they finally said, okay, well, actually, yes, it can happen, in the UK at least. And it became recognized as a crime.
And also, there's coercive behavior. It doesn't have to be, and we talked about this before, it doesn't have to be you being held down and physically forced against your will. It could be sexual coercion, which is, anything from, well, if you want to be able to do this, this, and this, or if you want to sleep in the bed tonight, or if you want to be able to see your children, then you need to have sex with me. I mean, these are, or they'll scream at you for all hours of the night until you finally cave and agree to have sex with them, or they'll lock you out of the bedroom. I mean, there's these other very manipulative ways that a lot of times people don't acknowledge is sexual abuse. And, what is unfortunately a common form of that is drugging somebody and taking advantage of them. And it's not because, if you think about it, it's not about having sex, it's power, because he could have sex with his fiance, with his wife. I mean, he could, but
she's even when she's all drowsy and whatnot, she's quite, she crawls into the bed. She's really drunk, and but she wants to be touchy-feely. She wants to be close to him. She's craving intimacy.
Yes. And
but it's not intimacy that he wants.
No, it's power. And that's exactly what he does. And,
he looks at her, Scott's character as well in the scene, in the bedroom scene. There's a sort of disgust to his body language. Like, he shrugs off like the little arm touch. He looks at it as like a dirty thing. Because you're drunk and you're a mess. Like, just
That's right.
Get off me. I'm in control.
That's right.
And then when you pass out, I'll get what I want. And it's that kind of message to a lot of people that have seen Purgatory have not had an abusive relationship, not being through abuse, and they talk to me and they say, God, he's a nasty piece of work. He is, isn't he? He's vile. And I'm like, yeah, he is. Yeah, he really is. And they're like, God, does that kind of thing really exist? Does that really happen? And it's like, yeah, it really does. Yeah, it does. But people don't talk about it, or people don't acknowledge it as being an issue. And like you say, people don't see it. It can be any human being to any other human being. And it is that control. 100%.
Absolutely.
Everything throughout the film has been that coercive kind of chess playing. And that comes to a crescendo in that scene. And it was a choice that we made as well to not show the abuse. One thing that I try to run throughout the theme of the entire film is that the viewer, as a virgin viewer, is a victim of Adam. You're being abused by Adam throughout the entire film. Yes. And he, for lack of a better phrase of putting this, he rapes the viewer at that point. Because like you said, in the next scene, you feel.
Oh, that was, to me, was worse. That scene, that last scene was worse to me than seeing, not that you showed the sexual abuse, but knowing what was happening when you showed it, like that end scene was way worse to me. I don't, as a viewer, as a female, it was just awful. It was really just awful. Like it was an awful feeling, and you just, ugh.
Again, it's because you projected yourself into it.
Yeah,
so,
it was really
in your
awful.
profession, you've probably come across a lot more than the average person has.
And the idea that it happens a lot, enough to be making a film about it, is really upsetting. And I think it proves your point, is, that it motivates people to leave this saying, I need to help her. I need to help her. And I realize now that I am capable of helping people like this. Yes. And I think that that's so important. So the last scene, take us through the last scene.
So the final scene of the film is when Shane's character Lilith goes back into the bathroom. So you've had the repeat of the morning, similar dialogue, similar, different angled shots, but it's the same cycle. He opens the window, he gives her a cup of tea. It's the same sort of dialogue delivered a bit more firmly. And the penny is dropped for the audience, and you're going, oh my God, I misjudged her. I misjudged the situation. Yep. She is a victim through and through, and now the story has shifted. And you see everything with clarity. When she walks into that final room, in the bathroom scene, that was actually the final scene that we shot, of the 3 days.
I think
you're trapped in there with her. That claustrophobia is back. The door won't close properly.
Yes.
He keeps glancing over at the door, and you're just kind of thinking, is he going to come back? Is she safe in there? Trapped in this room? You see the blood. You see her like whimper quietly, and like,
that was the worst.
Stifling her whimper, and you're thinking
that was the worst.
And you ask yourself, as the audience, does she know?
So that was,
you have these.
Yeah, that was my question too. Is that does she know? And she, at some point, does she remember? Does she have kind of these flashbacks of the night before? Does she have some sort of awareness that this was going on? And so it's almost as if when she says in the mirror that, the final, today's going to be a good day.
That's a hard line that time, isn't it?
Then that had a whole different vibe to it than the first time she said it. And it carried so much sadness and hopelessness and helplessness with it. And it's like, if you
don't drop your head when she says that line, you've missed the point of the film.
I mean, if you don't drop your head when she says it, then you're missing something that I can't begin to tell you how to replace. I've never seen anything so well done like this, about something like this. There's very few films that I think that really kind of capture that idea of coercive control. Very few, but this one just was on a different level. It truly was. I mean, it leaves the viewer feeling absolutely sick. And again, like you would think that maybe I'd be a little bit more kind of immune to it. And unfortunately, because I deal with this every day with my patients, but oh my God, I'm telling you, I was horrified, absolutely horrified. But yet there's nothing that happened.
Nothing happened.
Visually, that's horrifying. That's the craziest part about it. And so it's just on such an emotional level. And it was just you can see my face now. I'm like, ugh, it's just, you just feel afterwards. You just want to, I don't know, run away.
There are some nasty people out there.
Yes.
And someone you love, truth is, someone you love has been abused.
Yes.
At some point you will meet someone that you love, friends or family, has been abused. And
absolutely.
a film like this, I hope, allows people to just go, oh, and maybe it's not about volunteering to be a charity worker. When I say you can do something to help, I mean speak to the people that you love. Just keep an eye out. Like you say, be there as a parent or as a friend for the people in your life that are going to need you when they leave.
Exactly. And that you are capable of helping. A lot of times people feel so helpless, but you watch this going, oh, no. I know what I would need to. I would just need to be there. I would need to be there for her. It's not this massive task, right? It's sometimes people don't know what the hell to do. So it's easier for them to not do anything. But I think you did such a good job of showing that all she needs is someone to call her. Literally, all she needs is somebody to show up and take her, right? Like just simple. You
can see that there's that glimmer of moment of pause in Lilith when her mom rings and she looks and she sees it and she wants to pick it up and you want her to pick it up and she just needs that little bit of belief. And if she did pick it up, when when her mom and her sister come and pop in on the way down to London or whatever it was she said, she could leave.
Yes.
She could leave.
Exactly. And there's no kids involved. Like,
no,
just go.
Not married yet.
Nope, just go.
Yeah, you could just go.
She could just go, right? And again, we say it's so much easier said than done, which is why it's so important that you check in, because
people need
you just wanted her mom to show up so badly.
Yeah, you did, right? And and she needs a support network.
Yes,
that's the saving grace.
Tell everybody where they can watch this and where they can find you and your other amazing films and get in touch.
So the production company Blue Muse Productions is on YouTube. The film's free to watch, and if you go to Blue Muse, so Blue the color and Muse MUSE Productions, you'll find us on YouTube. It's on Instagram as well, but link you straight to it. But if people want to follow, go to YouTube Blue Muse Productions and they can watch the films for free. And feel free to give me a follow on Instagram.
And I will link all of this in the show notes so people have direct access. I'll link it in my stories when we post this. But thank you so much. And this has been absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
I'm sure I'm going to get a ton of questions on this, so I will send everyone your way.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. If you want to do just whatever, send them all over to me. I'm happy to talk anytime.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Next Up Narcissism. I hope you found it useful, but most importantly, I hope you found it validating. Want to work one-on-one with me? Visit my website at drjamiezuckerman.com to book a personalized coaching session, and be sure to check out my on-demand workshops on topics like co-parenting with a narcissist, life after leaving, anxiety management strategies, and more. Again, that's drjamiezuckerman.com. You'll also find links to my interactive workbooks, merchandise, resources, and newsletter sign-up. Next Up Narcissism is as much your podcast as it is mine. I want to hear your feedback and what you want to hear. So make sure to leave a podcast review wherever you listen or send an email to nextup@drjamiezuckerman.com. Again, that's nextup@drjamiezuckerman.com. Be sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And as always, thank you so much for listening. Make sure to tune in next week to see what's up next on Next Up Narcissism.